Welcome back to the Containment Zone. Some anomalies confront you with violence, others seduce with mystery. But this one, it stands still, waits patiently, and leaves something far worse behind than blood: doubt. SCP-303. Designation: the doorman. It does not attack. It does not speak. It doesn't even enter the room. And yet, everyone who encounters it suffers the same reaction. They freeze. The first confirmed encounter occurred at Site-19, Sublevel East, Corridor 3A. A pair of researchers were en route to Lab Theta-7 to retrieve a biometric scanner left behind after an SCP stress test. They reached the lab, stopped, and turned around without explanation. Both later submitted incident reports describing the same experience: a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread, an unbearable certainty that something was standing behind the door, breathing, heavy, labored, almost wet. No alarms were triggered, no anomalies breached, and when the door was opened hours later, the room was empty. But the interior temperature had dropped sharply. Surface condensation had formed on the lab's observation glass. And in the center, a fogged handprint. Palm down, no fingerprints. Since that day, SCP-303 has made no demands, no effort to communicate, no expression of hostility. It simply appears. Behind doors, at the top of stairwells, beyond curtain partitions, and always just barely visible. A silhouette outlined in breath. The doorman doesn't want to enter. It only wants you to know that it's there. SCP-303 does not attack. Its victims are never touched. There is no record of injury, force, or verbal threat. But it has stopped agents with combat training, reduced armed security to tiers, and caused experienced researchers to flee entire sectors without a word, all because it was behind a door. Its first extended manifestation occurred in Site-19's Dormitory Block C. A Level 2 staff member exited the shower and approached the changing room door. A standard steel partition with a fogged glass window. She paused, froze in place. She later described hearing breathing close, just inches away. The lights flickered. The door handle twitched. Once. Not enough to open, just enough to be seen. Through the window's blur, she saw a figure, broad, hunched, hairless. Its skin appeared pink, almost raw. No eyes, no mouth, just a ridged line where the face should be. As if a mouth had once been sewn shut, then forced open from within. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She stayed perfectly still for almost 40 minutes. When emergency response arrived and opened the door, nothing was there, but the steam had gathered on the ceiling in a spiral pattern, not from airflow, but from heat moving in a circle above the doorway. Following the incident, psychological assessment revealed no underlying trauma. The subject was mentally stable, physically unharmed. But she never returned to Dormitory Block C. She requested reassignment to a separate facility, then to off-site duties, then to leave the Foundation altogether. In her resignation letter, one line stood out: "It wasn't what I saw, it was what it didn't do." This pattern repeats. SCP-303 appears just beyond reach, sometimes behind a pane of glass, sometimes at the end of a hallway, often behind closed doors, especially the ones you need to open. It never moves, but it makes you believe that opening the door will make everything worse, and it's that belief that locks the handle better than any key. SCP-303 never enters a room. It never forces its presence. Instead, it appears, always in proximity, always at the threshold. It manifests near targets already in motion. Approaching a hallway, stepping toward a door, or reaching for a handle, and just before contact, the subject stops. A sensation begins, reported differently by every individual. A pressure in the chest, a weight behind the eyes, a drop in temperature, the sound of breath, not yours, at your shoulder. All of it overwhelming, all of it rooted in certainty that something is on the other side, and then they see it. Descriptions vary slightly, but the fundamentals remain a hairless, humanoid figure. Flesh appears swollen, raw, discolored, shades of pink and deep red. Limbs are proportionally long, posture hunched, with one hand always gripping the edge of the doorframe. The head is its most disturbing feature, eyeless, faceless, a wrinkled, puckered surface where a face should be, and a mouth, if it can be called that, stretched wide into an unnatural smile. But the mouth doesn't move, not to speak, not to breathe, because the breathing comes from its body. Heavy, uneven exhalations that fog up windows, steam metal handles, and echo through walls. Despite its grotesque appearance, SCP-303 does not pursue. It does not follow. Instead, it disappears once the observer retreats. If you leave the area, it does too, but it often reappears at your next destination. Personnel have reported seeing it on the other side of stairwells, elevators, restroom stalls, and emergency exits. One agent, locked inside an interview room for over 2 hours, refused to open the door. The lights were on. The glass was clear. He could see the hallway, empty, except for one corner, just out of frame, where a shape moved, when no one else did. He never opened the door. Security recovered him dehydrated and nonverbal. He was later diagnosed with acute exposure trauma. The Foundation's medical division coined the syndrome, anticipatory paralysis. SCP-303 didn't harm him. It didn't need to. Because it's not what 303 does. That causes damage. It's what it makes you imagine it could do. SCP-303 is not bound to a single location. It manifests across multiple Foundation sites, often within hours of each other, with no consistent point of origin. It has appeared at Site 19, Site 42, and the Western Containment Annex within the same 48-hour period. There is no record of movement between locations, no detection of mass displacement, no electromagnetic trace. It simply appears. And more specifically, it appears at moments of necessity. Doors to critical containment units, corridors leading to emergency power, isolation rooms, medical supply closets. It doesn't block random access. It blocks the exact thing someone needs at that moment. One incident involved a medical technician en route to retrieve a cryo-stabilizer pack for a patient in stasis failure. She reached the cold storage chamber, keyed in the access code, then froze. Security logs show she stood at the door for 17 minutes. The hallway was quiet, lights dimmed. She didn't speak, didn't call for help. Later, she described what she saw through the reinforced glass. A face, except it wasn't a face. It was waiting for me to see it. When the door was finally opened by another staff member, there was nothing inside. But the stasis patient expired during the delay, and the cryo chamber itself, an insulated, sealed container, was 5 degrees warmer than it should have been. Another event occurred during a containment breach drill at Site 42. Agents were required to retrieve a sealed memetic hazard capsule from the lower labs. 3 agents entered the corridor. None reached the door. All 3 reported sudden nausea, auditory hallucinations, and pressure in their ears. 2 dropped their weapons. 1 vomited. The third simply collapsed. Drone feed shows no anomaly, no figure. But when the audio is isolated, a soft breath can be heard. In the background of every recording, perfectly timed, with the frame where the door becomes visible. Cross-analysis of incidents revealed something stranger. SCP-303 doesn't just appear where it can be seen. It appears where you're about to arrive. Logs show it manifesting 1 to 2 minutes before a person reaches the door, which means it doesn't react to your presence. It predicts it. It knows when you're coming, and it waits, not to stop you, but to see what you'll do instead. The longer someone is exposed to SCP-303, the less it needs to appear. Its image becomes unnecessary. The body begins to anticipate it. The mind begins to avoid doors that aren't even blocked. Foundation psychological evaluations show that personnel who have encountered SCP-303 develop a progressive symptom profile avoidance behavior, reduced decision-making speed, sudden onset agoraphobia, hallucinations of breath or heat near thresholds, and in advanced stages, door paralysis. A subject may stand perfectly capable, fully armed, fully alert, and simply refuse to open a door, even when that door is the only thing between them and safety. One such case occurred during an unrelated breach at Site-19. A fire suppression unit failed, trapping a technician in an access corridor with rising temperatures. Evacuation routes were online, alarms functioning, but she did not move. She stood in front of the door for 5 minutes, then 6. At minute 7, she attempted to open it, then stopped, hands shaking. Later, she was recovered by emergency personnel and stabilized. She survived, but when asked why she didn't exit the room, her reply was chilling. Because I knew it was waiting on the other side, and I would rather burn than be seen by it again. She never described seeing SCP-303, only feeling it, as if her memory of its presence had replaced its need to appear. In another case, an agent stationed at Site-11 was placed under observation after refusing to enter his own quarters. Security camera footage showed no anomaly, but biometric readings indicated extreme stress, elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, cold skin response. He remained in the hallway for 6 hours, never knocked, never moved. When questioned, he stated, "If I open it, it'll know I'm ready." No further detail. This mental residue has a lasting effect. Even months after exposure, recovered personnel exhibit hesitation behaviors, pausing before elevators, lingering near curtains, checking locked closets twice before walking away. Because once you've stood on the other side of a door and felt SCP-303 waiting, you never truly forget what it means to hesitate. No incident involving SCP-303 has ever resulted in physical harm. No subject has been taken, no door forced open, no boundary crossed. It doesn't act, it waits, which has led Foundation analysts to question if SCP-303 is even a sentient entity or something else entirely. One theory: SCP-303 is a psychic construct, a shared hallucination embedded within a spatial trigger. According to this model, 303 doesn't exist independently. It only exists the moment you believe it's behind the door, and your fear gives it shape. This would explain the perfect correlation between necessity and manifestation, why it appears when you need to leave a room, access a weapon, or reach someone else. It doesn't stop you from surviving. You do. Another theory treats SCP-303 not as a hallucination, but as a preventive mechanism, a safeguard embedded within human psychology, a living expression of the idea: there are some doors you're not ready to open. One researcher compared it to the sensation of being watched when no one's there, a glitch in perception, a fragment of self-preservation projected outward. But if that were true, why is it always the same form, the same breathing, the same wet heat on the glass, the same pressure in the chest before the handle turns? Others believe SCP-303 is a symbolic filter, that the entity isn't stopping you. It's testing you, because opening the door has never been the problem. It's what you're willing to face on the other side. Personnel who have resisted the paralysis, who open the door despite the fear, report the same thing: an empty room, cool air, and silence. But none of them feel relief. They feel watched. Not because the threat is gone, but because they crossed a line that wasn't meant to be crossed. SCP-303 may not be dangerous, but it's not harmless either, because the worst kind of anomaly is the one that doesn't need to act, to leave something inside you. SCP-303 is not in containment. It doesn't require a chamber, a cage, or a protocol. It is not assigned to any single site. It leaves no trail. It obeys no schedule. But it still appears. On the other side of locked doors, curtains drawn, hallways too quiet, exits that should be safe. It does not hurt you. It does not move. It only makes you wonder, what will happen if you go through? And that question, once it's in your mind, is harder to close than any door. Security teams no longer attempt to track its location. Instead, they measure its residue and delays in routine movement, sudden silence on access logs, personnel refusing to enter common rooms, heat signatures recorded just beyond proximity cameras, and in all cases, nothing is ever seen, only breath, only hesitation, only doors. That shouldn't be so hard to open, because SCP-303 doesn't confine you. It confronts you with your most primitive doubt. What if the fear is right? What if the thing you imagined is real this time? And what if it's not behind the door, but already inside? The Foundation continues to log appearances, to observe, to wait, because SCP-303 doesn't demand attention. It just asks a question. You'll carry with you into every hallway you walk alone, and the next time you reach for a doorknob and pause, just for a moment, ask yourself why. Thank you for reviewing another anomaly in the containment zone. And if something is breathing on the other side of that door, don't open it unless you're ready to see what's been waiting just for you.